Alright, the carpet's in, the headliner's in, the door panels are in. We're ready to install the seats. Well, yes, but not quite. The seat covers are from PUI, and they were installed on the seats when I bought the car. So other than a good cleaning, there wasn't really anything I needed to do with the back seats. So I cleaned them and then put them away and covered them up in plastic. The front buckets were also covered with PUI seat covers, but there's a lot more to bucket seats than the bench seat in the back. So I had to take all the pieces apart and go through a few things. I removed the 4 seat base covers and gave them a thorough cleaning. And then I picked between the 4 covers and I chose the ones that would look best on the outsides of the seat, that would be most visible, and I paired the covers up that way. After cleaning the lower covers, I cleaned the headrests and set those aside until I needed them. Next, I removed the seat backs and gave the bucket seats a real good cleaning. Then I folded the seats and flipped the seats so that the bottoms were facing up and prepared to remove the tracks. Each track is held in with 2 bolts, one fore and aft, and on the inside of the seat there's a large return spring, and you need to remove that spring before taking the track loose, and you can easily do that by hand. The driver's side seat tracks had some rust issues that needed to be addressed. So once the tracks are removed, you start looking at that and reconditioning the seat track. Once all the parts had been removed and cleaned, everything was set aside and covered up to keep it clean until it was needed again. The first thing I did with the seat tracks is I soaked the track feet in Evapo-Rust to try to dissolve some of that rust. And as I mentioned earlier, the driver's side seat tracks, the feet of the tracks were pretty rusty. And after soaking the track feet in Evapo-Rust for several days, I then took a brass bristle brush and cleaned the tracks up as best I could. Next, I cleaned the tracks with purple cleaner to dissolve any grease that might be inside the track channels. The passenger side seat tracks were in exceptional condition, and those tracks needed very little work. And the driver's side track feet, even after soaking in Evapo-Rust, needed additional work. So I took a mandrel and a sanding roll and used my rotary tool, and I got in there and sanded the feet, tried to smooth them up. And even after sanding with as much rust as there was on the track feet, there's a little bit of pitting, but they certainly look much better. If you've been following along with my work on this car, you could probably guess what this is. It's the Dawn dish soap phase. So I gave the tracks a good bath in dish soap, scrubbed them really well, tried to get them ready for paint. Alright, the tracks are clean, and now it's time for a coat of primer. I let the primer dry for several hours, and then I gave the tracks a coat of paint with Duplicolor stainless steel paint. And I don't know how much it looks like stainless steel. It does a fairly good job of imitating factory electroplate finish. Let the paint dry overnight, and then the next day I lubricated the tracks with lithium grease. And each track has 4 ball bearings and 2 rollers. I applied the grease using the tube, and then after I had the grease pretty much in place, I took an old paintbrush and spread it around and put it exactly where I wanted it. I bought new seat track springs, and the smaller spring is for the adjustment lever, and the large spring is the return spring, so that if you have the seat fully reclined and if you want to push the seat forward, it'll help pull the seat forward. I installed the smaller adjuster lever spring with a pair of channel locks, and the big spring you can install that by hand. And here you can see the adjustment lever spring in place. And here I have the outside seat track installed. And you can see some of the white grease I used for lubricant on the inside of the track. And here I have the inside seat track installed, and I also have the return spring installed. And what a tremendous difference reconditioning the seat tracks makes. It's one of those details that's easy to overlook initially when you're looking at the car or someone's looking at the car. But once you see them and you notice it, you know, it's a nice impact detail. All right, the tracks are reinstalled, and now we can start putting the seat back together. The seat base covers are the first parts that go back on, and as I mentioned earlier, I selected the covers so that the best 2 I had would face to the outside because those are the most visible. And I bought a new screw kit, and I put all new screws in the seats. Actually, the entire interior has all new screws. Oldsmobile has a stainless bullet that goes on the end of the bright trim on the lower seat covers, but I could not get those to fit. I bought a set, I just could not get them to fit right, and so I just decided to leave them off. Now the next thing to install is the seat backs. I bought a new set of seat backs and a new set of latch release buttons. The seat backs install easily. There's 2 pockets up on top that catch on some fingers, and then there's 3 screws on the bottom, and that's all there is to installing the seat backs. And then the latches, they just press into place. The seat latch buttons, I had a heck of a time with those. I mean, the install is really straightforward. It's just, you just press it in place, but I had a hard time getting it pushed down in there. In the end, I have to give it a good pop with the palm of my hand to get it down in there to seat. The headrest locks have seen better days, so we're going to replace those as well. And the first thing I did is I removed the retaining plates and I painted those. I reinstalled the retaining plates after I painted them, and then just put the locks in place. The thing to watch out for with the locks is don't over tighten them or you could potentially crack the plastic. And it's just amazing what some new parts will do for your seats. It's like they're entirely different seats. Well, and then lastly, just slide the headrest down in place. Well, that's it. Seats are all put back together. They're clean, and they're ready to install.